Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Coherent Connection. This is a very special episode because we're having on board a special guest speaker, Iris Misshula. Iris will be talking to us about the practicalities of being coherent. She will um, elaborate further on how um, coherence relates to her day-to-day life, and she will share with us a very special story as well. So now Renata will introduce Iris for us. Renata, would you like to tell us more about Iris?
Yes. Iris and I met, probably maybe a year ago at a Reiki circle. We were both attending and we had an immediate connection. You know, she's one of those people that we meet in life and you have that recognition. And we didn't get together right away, but we ran into each other shortly after. And it's been a nice connection. And we ended up taking a trip together with a group of our friends to the Southwest and to California. We did a big journey. And on that journey, we had really set an intention for our group to focus on coherence and to see what kind of magical unfoldings could occur when we're in group coherence on an unfolding adventure. So, we had some really cool things happen. And, Iris has been on a spiritual path. She's a yoga teacher and very involved with nutrition and health and consciousness. And that's what we all love. And so I want to turn it back to you, Randa. Yeah, this is my friend. Say hi, Iris.
Hi.
Welcome, Iris. I'm excited about, I have already heard that story, but I'm really excited about hearing it. Again, tell us about this magical story of, being coherent. To me, it's a story about being coherent. To you, it's the story of your truth. So please tell us more. Let our audience really feel and touch and get to know more what it really means like to be coherent.
Well, the truth is, before I met Renata, I never really thought in terms of coherence. So this has really been my first experience with it. And we took this trip together. There were bumps along the way. We knew that would happen. And she started teaching me about when we get coherent and we go to our heart, how we set the attention, how things could unfold. So we're going along and all these things are happening and we start manifesting. I called it the magical mystical tour, and things were going our way. Even when they didn't go our way, we were able to switch them around. So we met up with another HeartMath facilitator, Tom, a friend, Tom Frenna, and we were together in the Grand Canyon, and we were just having a wonderful time. And it was very cold that night, and we went to this one restaurant where it was famous. Presidents had eaten there, many dignitaries, rock stars, everybody. And so that night I was feeling kind of chilled, and I want something warm. And they had a lamb chop special. And I gave my, intention to that lamb for giving its life and my gratitude for that. And I said to myself, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with Tom and Renata. So, do you mind if I pick up the bone? And they go, no. And I pick up the bone and I hear crack. And with that, I go, oh no, what just happened? Now, I had a veneer on my front tooth for 15 years. And I have that veneer in my hand right now. And I'm like, I don't have a tooth. Now it is 8:00 on a Monday night. And I start getting a little bit, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I have a wedding back home on Saturday. I don't have a front tooth. We're leaving tomorrow morning for Phoenix. I have to take a plane. We're going on this big drive. I'm going home. I'm going home because I have to get a new tooth to go to this wedding because I am not going to this wedding without a front tooth.
So now you're Iris, you're nervous, you're scared, you are thinking about stopping the trip and right in the middle of it, right? And going back home.
Yes, and just to tell you a little backstory, I was supposed to go home that next day, and Renata and Tom were going on to Phoenix to go to a beautiful Mount Shasta. And I had decided, and that was another miracle story, how I wound up going, but I was going to join them. Tom really felt inspired that I should be there. We had all been together on this. So I decided to go. So now I actually still never canceled my plane ticket. So I said I was going home. And Tom and Renata said, listen, let's get coherent. So we're in, yes, we're in the middle of this busy restaurant. We hold hands, we close our eyes, and we go to the heart. And they say to me, well, listen, you can go home. What do you really want? How do you want this to go? Do you want to say something?
Well, there were a couple of little things that happened before we went to our heart. We kind of did some pre-paving energetically that kind of helped lighten up the situation. So do you want to...
You mean as far as...
do you remember taking the photo? And
well, I think that was after. You see, we got coherent because I remember we held hands, we got coherent. And then I came out and I said, okay, I'm at peace, I'm going. I'm in, I'm going. Now without a tooth. I was coming home on Thursday night, so I said Friday I will somehow get a tooth back home. But I am going to go to Mount Shasta, but then we said, but we're going to set the intention that I would get a tooth. In the meantime, I take out my phone and I flip when you put the camera on, and I look at myself. I take a picture, and hysterical, and we start laughing. Laughter gets you right into your heart. We're laughing, and I really let go. And if you know me, I was just saying before we even got on here that, I'm that type of person that wants everything to look right and go right a little bit, sometimes too much. And it was a really big release, and I was so proud of myself that I was going to face the world with no tooth. So my friend Tom, after we decide, he says, listen, he has a condo back in Santa Fe. He said, I have a friend who's a dentist. Let's call him. So we called the dentist, and he said to us, he gave us some instructions. One, you have to get someone who is in the Pacific dental system. So that was one requirement. Two, he has to have a CEREC machine. A CEREC machine is something that can kind of make a tooth in the office. It's different than just a temporary.
All right.
And three, you have to find someone close to the Phoenix airport because we're flying out the next day at 7:30 in the morning. So now we have those three things.
So your mission is starting to get more difficult.
It's starting to get more difficult, and so many things have to fall in place. But we have a good laugh, and we go to sleep. We wake up in the morning ready to have an early breakfast and to get out. And so Renata, we're staying in the lodge. Renata and I stayed together, and Tom was at a different place. So we have the car, and we told Tom, oh, mind you, you can't get any cell service in the Grand Canyon. So we made up a time before that we would meet. We walk out, and there's a big elk just, roaming. And we take pictures, and we say, how nice. And then we look at our car, and we have a flat tire. And I'm like, oh, you're kidding me. You're kidding. I cannot believe we have a flat tire. Now that's going to delay. How will we go? I start getting, she says, nope, let's get coherent. Go This is only a test. This is only a test. So she said, go inside because, we had regular landlines. Call Tom, tell Tom to come to meet us, and there has to be a garage in the Grand Canyon. So I make these connections. The garage isn't open. I get someone to speak to. He said, we can come out, but if you have a car service like AA, AAA, then you could, it wouldn't cost you as much. Now I'm thinking about the money, all these things. And I say, okay, I get in touch with Tom. Tom says he'll come over. And I walk out, and there's Renata in all her glory with a couple, a husband and a wife. And the husband is finishing the last part of putting on the spare tire. And I'm like, this would only be Renata. So, and mind you, he's thanking her for letting him help her do this. So I'm like, how did it happen? And you want to say how it happened? Like because the elk walked over to our car.
Yeah, that's. I was standing at the car with our luggage because we had brought our luggage out, and Iris was inside, and I noticed that elk we had been looking at came and just started walking by my car of all the places to be. And so he was like hanging out in front of the car, and now people are walking to take pictures of the elk the way we had. And this woman comes with her camera, and we're chit-chatting about the elk, and I see a man following behind, and I kind of size him up, and I'm like, he looks like someone who would know how to change a tire. So I say to him, like I felt inspired. I'm like, you wouldn't know how to change a tire, do you? And he goes, I sure do. And it was like, it was his pleasure to get on the ground, on his back, loosen lug nuts, you put the thing up. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I don't know if I would even do that. Well, maybe I would if I knew how, but it was, quite comical just to see how that unfolded. And they were just very lovely. And then Iris comes out. And
I come out, and here Tom is coming towards us. And the other part of that is his wife is wearing like the name of a dental office. And I said, well, I'm nervous because, if I don't have a tooth, is anything going to happen? And I said, I lost my tooth. And she said, she's a dental hygienist. So of all things, she says, well, don't go to this umbrella company. She told me a company to stay away from. I told her what the dentist in Santa Fe said, and she said, that's great, and you'll be fine, even if you don't get a tooth, because my husband was concerned that my teeth would shift if I let it go a few days. So I'm still not attached to me getting a tooth, but I'm still putting out that intention. So he puts the tire on, the three of us get in the car, we drive to the garage, we're the first people there, it's pretty early. And
it's 5 minutes from where we are.
Go, you know what? You are so lucky, because that nail that was in your tire, if it had been a quarter of an inch more, we couldn't have fixed it. But you will be fine. They patch it up, $29, and we're off. We actually, which is really funny, had a nice breakfast. So we don't even say, let's get in the car, and the possibility that, we would get an appointment or find a dentist. So we get it. We finally have our breakfast. We get on our way, and Tom's in the back seat. Renata's next to me, and I'm driving. And Tom starts making calls. Now, again, it is now, we figure out that by the time we get there, it will be close to 3 o'clock. We have to now find a dentist close to the airport, under that Pacific Dental, I don't recall that conglomerate of dentists, and near the airport at that time, with a CEREC machine. So he calls the first person, and she said she had a lot of the requirements, but they weren't by the airport. Now, the other piece to this is we were meeting friends at 6 o'clock in Phoenix at the Biltmore Hotel, and we had planned this beautiful dinner, and we were all getting there. So I figured I was going without a tooth, but I'll hold the intention. And we stayed light about it. We stayed in our heart. Tom calls someone else, and here's when it starts going. I'm driving. We even take the longer route by mistake, and he gets someone in the second office, and she says, well, we're by the airport. Yes, we have a CEREC machine, and we only have one appointment for the day. 3 o'clock. I mean, I can't even believe that they had one appointment and it was 3 o'clock. We take the appointment, and she said, oh, and you'll have a consultation. We won't even charge you for the consultation. Mm-hmm. So we finally get there, and it's 2:56. They leave me, they go to the hotel that's not too far by, and the dentist comes in, he looks at it, he takes an x-ray, and then he sends in his assistant to tell me what the cost would be. And I had a number in my mind because I had to go home and now get a tooth. So I didn't want to spend, and I'm thinking I'm going to get that temporary right away, so I don't want to spend a ridiculous amount. Well, he tells me it's $500. And I'm like, oh my goodness, $500. I just spent a lot of money to change my ticket. I'm losing my other ticket. No, I'm going to live without the tooth and roll the dice. And I tell him, I really appreciate this and I would love to have it. And I tell the assistant, but it's just too much money. And I didn't say it in a bargaining way to make him, I didn't ask him to go less. And she comes back and she says, well, the doctor said he would take $200 off. And at that point I said, you know what, I'm doing it. Here's another little glitch. His whole computer system making the tooth goes down while he is making my tooth. Oh. But again, I started to go a little out of my heart. And now I'm really starting to practice this. And I went in and gave it up and got calm. And I felt it because I can feel when I'm here versus when I'm here. And all I can say, at 4:45, I walked out of the office with a beautiful tooth, which I can't show you now because I just got the temporary for the other tooth. But it was the most miraculous story, down to I got an Uber with a guy that we had this long conversation about the meaning of life and things like this. Of all the Uber drivers I would get, I got that one. And 6 o'clock, we were at the Biltmore Hotel, tooth intact.
And what was also cool about being at the hotel is, the night before when we were in the Grand Canyon and we were working on the coherence and working on setting the intention for the next day, because we did a lot of pre-paving energetically for these things to line up. So when we were at the table, a couple of things happened that we didn't mention. First, before we got coherent, Tom started telling the story about when he was, because Iris was sitting there with this tooth missing and she was hiding it and she was very uncomfortable and imagining, how am I going to go around meeting people on this trip if I don't have a tooth? So Tom tells the story of one of his close friends in, I think it was like first grade or something, this little girl who sat in the front of the class. She had 2 of her teeth missing up front, and she was very proud of it. And what she used to do, which Tom loved, is when the teacher would be up at the board with her back to the class, the little girl would stand up and turn around to the class and flash her missing teeth very proudly. So we did that, and we talked about that, and we started laughing, and that's when Iris took the photo. And so we were actually elevating our frequency, lightening up the field. Yeah. And so from that coherent place, when we got coherent, we set the intention for the next day. And we knew all of those components had to line up. We knew that we had that dinner at the Biltmore Hotel the next day. we knew that we had to find, you know, a dentist to get there. But what we did is, in our coherence, we spoke our intention, and we spoke it. We held hands, and we just started talking about how excited we were going to be tomorrow night, sitting at the Biltmore Hotel, and looking back on this moment where we are creating Iris's tooth to manifest. And we put ourselves in the energy and the vibration of the satisfaction and the excitement and the miraculousness of having manifested this tooth in less than 24 hours. This was 9 o'clock at night that we were sitting there creating this, and it was the next day. We knew it had to be done by 6 for us to be sitting at dinner, you know, looking back on this moment. So we kind of created a loop to the future that and it was like a pathway. We could see that there was a path to this manifestation. And, you know, they say that when you have a desire in your heart, there will be a means to fulfill that desire. So we found that pathway, you could say that frequency, that vibration, for us to be sitting in the Biltmore having a look back on this moment with total unbelievable, you know, like the miraculousness, the excitement of our co-creation. And that's exactly what ended up happening. I took a picture of Iris sitting across from me at dinner that night as we were saying this. I snapped her picture with her new tooth as we said, do you remember how yesterday in the Grand Canyon we created this moment?
And you know what, you know, for Renata, she lives in this a lot. For me, it really showed me a few things. One is to be lighthearted, you know, to accept. And, you know, that was a stretch for me, where when you can't control everything, and, you know, is it worth missing out of this great adventure because I didn't have a front tooth? Like, you know, there are lots of people, I guess, that don't have front teeth, and it's okay. Like, so what? And because we also found the humor in it, but the whole joy of setting that intention and each piece falling into place as we stayed coherent and stayed in the heart, to me is something that will always be a lesson that will give to me time and time again.
Exactly. That's what I felt when you were telling this story. That to me, I was thinking this is really a magical story with lots of lessons, you know, to be remembered. And I will try to, you know, not repeat the story, but I want to speak a little bit in the language of HeartMath, in order to explain what was happening. So coherence for HeartMath, it is a state of optimal performance. It is when our internal systems, our body, the mind, the brain, the heart, or all our internal systems are in sync. And this allows our brain to function optimally, meaning the centers in our brain that are responsible for critical thinking, problem solving, and memory, they are functioning really optimally. So when you're saying I'm getting into my heart, I'm getting coherent, I'm laughing, because laughing is a way for us to get coherent. We are allowing our being, our body, all our systems to get in sync, and thus for our brain to function optimally, meaning that for every problem there is a solution, but when I get coherent, I allow my brain access to that solution. So when you are when you're starting to get nervous, you're not thinking clearly, you're not able to see the possibilities of solutions around you. But when you're getting coherent, we say, I'm thinking straight, I'm thinking clearly, I could you know, come up with efficient decisions, which is really one of the benefits of us getting into into a state of coherence. Allowing us to get to efficient solutions in a very short time, because our brains are able to engage all these parts that are responsible for us coming up to that solution and thinking efficiently. And it also allowed you, Iris, and Tom and Renata as well, to better enjoy. Like for
Yes.
example, you were saying that with all the trouble that was going on, you could have a beautiful breakfast and you enjoyed your time. Because coherence gets your energy recharged, and you could better enjoy anything really you can do. So instead of staying in this uh, state of just being worried and scared and nervous and not knowing what to do, um, which would lead you into really not having a good time at all. You will just be, here in your head, just worrying about um, the things that you need to worry about and really not enjoying anything. But when you say, I get coherent, which is, our optimal state of performance, we are able to better enjoy our time and have access to this plethora of solutions that is around us. Because we've excuse me, we know that for every problem there is a solution. We just need to think
Aligned to,
clearly and
yeah.
yes, align. This is what Renata is talking about, being in alignment. But this
Rhonda, I
is what it
think
really is.
I heard something you said, and it's so true. Because if I would have never, if I didn't get to that place, I would have never been able to say, okay, I'm letting it go and I want to go on the trip. You see, the first thing, when I got really into what I really wanted, it wasn't as much about the tooth as that I didn't want to miss out on this trip, the rest of the trip. So once I became at peace with that, then I was able to say, okay, well, it'll really be nice if I have a tooth for the rest of the trip. But I think just when I calm down and I get out of that panic or whatever stress I'm feeling, I am able to, and now you're right, I was able to make the decision of what, let's say, my heart or really wanted me to do. What I really wanted to do, and that was to complete the trip with them, which that whole experience was fantastic too, being in Mount Shasta with them. So it was such a win. And we also had, little bumps, many other bumps that we got through more or less in the same way. And not that everything always turned out 100% like my tooth, but we were able to get through the experience in that state and have the most wonderful trip of our lives.
So, Iris, this really inspiring story. What I'm listening to you say is that you're saying there were so many bumps on the road in this trip, but yet you could still manage to have this magical experience and learn so many lessons from it. Whereas if someone else was having this trip and not being in a state of coherence, or even you did not get really into this state of coherence, you would not be here with us, sharing the magic of this trip and telling us how beautiful it was. This is really inspiring that your level of coherence could get you to that state of, really enjoying even the bad things that had happened during that trip, and you could get the lessons from them. So that's why it is really it has been really magical for you, and we could sense that now you're telling this story. We could really hearing that story, we could sense really how magical it was. So this is very inspiring, beautiful.
Well,
Renata, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to end with saying that it's the tooth that keeps on giving, because it's a story I can go back to when, as a true example of when and I know that feeling of what I felt, how we got coherent, and I can tell the difference. And really, before I met Renata, as much as I was on this path and studying a lot of philosophies and, on a spiritual path, I was new to HeartMath. And I was always in my head. I mean, I'm a feeler and I felt things, but I didn't know in times of stress or in everyday life how to access that. So this is something so wonderful that the both of you are doing, because even people in the spiritual community aren't aware of this. We meditate, we do all these things, and for that, it's great. But like, this is a tool, a real tool to have in your tool belt of like, okay, I'm freaking out a little. I'm recognizing that. Let me get to my heart. Let me get coherent, and let's make decisions from, and proceed from that place. So very grateful.
Well, you have a great teacher. Renata is
I know that.
is a great teacher.
What I get from this story, and you guys are mentioning, that you could still have a good time in the bumps, and we really did. But what I would say is we really didn't have that many bumps. We had a couple of bumps, but even the bumps aligned to have a purpose to them. And it really seems that when we are in our coherence and we're in a field, we're creating this coherent field. And when it's high frequency and we're strong in the adventure of it, because that's really what it was for us. It's like, what's going to happen next? Like, what, miraculous thing will the universe bring us? And then it becomes like law of attraction. And law of attraction bringing all this good into our lives and these adventures. And it's almost like, I like to say, the difference between being in a 3D life or a 5D life. We really were able to elevate ourselves so that the seas parted for us pretty much as we went on this journey. And I think that for me is an even bigger message of when we get coherent, the alignment that happens in our life, in general.
This is really inspiring. I think that, our audience would start thinking, what beautiful experiences I could, attract to my life if I really get coherent. And I believe that now you are experiencing, Iris, you could like experience that on a day-to-day basis, not just, being coherent during that trip, and that's that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I use it as a tool now all the time. It's part of my life. And I think when you start, people can tell you about things, and this is what I would tell your audience, to learn more, but not just learn, really, learn it for yourself and feel it, because then you have that. It's real. It's not, it's something, it's a feeling that that you do feel, and a state of being that you can tell. And your life will change for the better, because you're making decisions not from a chaotic, stressed out brain. You're calming yourself down, and you're making decisions from, a place where I feel what will be best for you will come. So, whatever that decision in that situation, every situation is different. So it's been a great asset, and I will continue to use this for the rest of my life.
I think I would add to that is that, the tools are being very practical, and it's not like we have to detach ourselves from our life and go to a special place with a special setting in order for us to get coherent. We can get coherent on the go, just, applying these practical tools right in the middle of the chaotic experience.
Speaking of that, I just want to mention, because I just love this, and I don't think I had the awareness about chaotic situations, that people who are sharpshooters are trained to be coherent, so that in the midst of a stressful, chaotic emergency type of a situation, they can stay calm and take aim if they need to. And I think that kind of gives an illustration when you think of that alignment. Now, interpersonally, we're about the heart and about love, but that steadiness that comes to us from being coherent gives a more aligned outcome. And I think that's a great message of life, is
Absolutely.
our inner alignment aligns our life.
Beautiful. Yes, exactly. Um, Iris, I have enjoyed this meeting with you tremendously, and your story is really inspiring. Every time I hear it, I'm learning something new and I'm inspired in a different way. Thank you for your willingness to share this with us and for inspiring us and our audience as well. Would you like to add something before we end this episode?
I just want to thank you both for having me on today to tell my story, and also appreciation for what you're doing, and bringing this to a broader audience and educating people. So it really was an honor to be here with both of you, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure having you. Renata, would you like to add something before we end this?
No, I think I'm just going to say thank you to you two, Randa, and opening this opportunity for us to share this story, which I know you've heard before, but again, it's the tooth that keeps on giving.
Right.
So
Exactly.
thank you. Thank you, everybody. And we hope to see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Rhonda.
Bye-bye.